Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino
All right, welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Gino and today we have Jen Diffenderfer, fellow pilot and a director of customer engineering for a large organization and a kind leader. Welcome to the show here, Jen, and I would love to hear your background and tell us about yourself.
Sure thing. Thank you so much for having me onto the podcast today. This is just such a pleasure to do and spend some time with you. So yes, I'm Jen Diffenderfer. I am a technologist and a people leader, have been for about 20 years in the IT industry, based in Virginia. And along the tenure of my career, I started actually out in the IT help desk way back in college and realized at an early age, when you help people and you solve their problems, you can make magic happen. So my undergrad degree was in information systems, continued on for a business degree as well. And I'm one of those weird people that actually use my degree. So I've stayed the course in IT and management throughout the tenure of my career so far. And for me, it really comes down to that intersection between technology and people, and figuring out where technology can really help to solve people's problems or, help to build business and specifically help to build things that have never been built before. That's fun for me.
Right.
And helping people along that journey is really what I always seek to improve and to do more of. So it started out, in college in the help desk. That went to a little bit of work in consulting for a few years. After that, I moved over to an engineering firm and, all in that same vein of leading people and bridging that gap between technology and people along the way, and found the practice of customer engineering, or sales engineering, as it's also known, about 7 or 8 years ago. And that's just been a really, really awesome experience. And I get to work with some amazing people and build some amazing teams along the way.
That's awesome. Well, welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
Phenomenal background. I like that, technology and people, really what captivated what you were saying about your background. So the purpose for what we're doing, or why I'm wanting to do this, is to really show and educate the folks out there about kind leadership. And separating the two, kindness is about, being not just nice, but it's being about having that empathy, having that caring about the individuals, the folks that you're working with. And then the leadership. And the leadership is about leading, right? Leading with intentions and the right intentions, as well as making sure that you are influencing rather than being not necessarily negative or too forceful, right? Mm-hmm. Bring those two together. And that's what it creates, this kind leadership concept that, that a lot of people, when you hear it's like, oh, this is just a nice person, manager. No, but it's not about that. It really is about putting that leadership and the kindness and putting that together and making sure that we are making an impact with our folks that are under us or with us, right? Or even above us, right? We are making sure that we're creating that impact all around. So tell us a little bit about, what do you think about kind leadership and some experiences throughout your career?
Sure. And I think you nailed it spot on. The concept of kind leadership is not being nice. Mm-hmm. I like how you framed that. To me, someone said, I flipped the mirror on them very effectively. And to me, that means feedback, mm-hmm. and feedback in a positive way, also feedback in a constructive way. So along the way, I wind up working with a lot of, I have direct reports, I have indirect reports, I have peers, I have folks up and down. And my superpower that I try to exhibit for those around me is the power of perception. Mm-hmm. And so really taking a lot of things that I see and feel and observe, whether they're said or unsaid, and packaging that into something that others can learn from, or it maybe helps to advance the conversation further than where we were before. I love efficiency.
Good.
So being that person to say, I hear this and I see this and I feel this from over here. Therefore, let's do this, mm-hmm. and move us in a good direction forward. I think that that's really my superpower. And a couple of people have shared that with me along the way. It's not something that I've come up with myself. So people will come to me occasionally and ask for feedback. And it's not always the feedback that they're expecting. It's like, Jen, give me what you see. What are your observations? What can I do better? Why is this stuck? Those kinds of things. And there have been a couple of examples, and there were actually a couple of folks who came to me last week. I was at a conference, and they came up to me and they said, Jen, can I just chat with you for a little bit? I was like, absolutely. What's up? And they're like, I just wanted to say thank you. And I was like, for what? I didn't do anything. And, and they were like, well, this one situation, you asked these questions or you pushed me to do something different, and it changed the trajectory of what I was doing in a meaningful way. And some of these things were like years ago, so it's not something that like kind leadership to me is not something that has to necessarily have an immediate impact, but it can be cumulative over a period of time where you do one thing and that's the spark that creates something down the road.
Exactly. And just to pull that thread, is energy. Really,
Yes.
when your intentions are appropriately aligned with that energy and trying to really help and care about other folks, people feel that, right? And those words have an impact. So for your example, I'm sure, it was a while back, but what you said, it was like, oh, okay. Perspective, as you said. I love how you say that, because at the end of the day is how people, perception is reality, right? So how do people perceive what is being told? They take it one way, and if it comes with the right energy, it's going to help them elevate compared to the energy of you're not good enough, or why did you do that, without providing the value behind. People take that very personal and takes them in the wrong path, in the wrong direction, right? So one of the things I like to emphasize when I'm talking to folks is kind leadership is about, setting the right intentions, but it's the power of the words that you're using in a way that they are taking it in a positive way rather than a negative way. You know what I mean?
In a constructive way.
Constructive way. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yep.
Thanks. One thing that I say as it relates to perspective is we create our own world. Like the way I see the world through my eyes are going to be completely different than anybody's eyes, right? The way you experience this world in your life, your beliefs, your career, all the different things is through my eyes and my vision, right? And sometimes people get caught up in the perception of like, I'm going to be right because I see, like if there was a number in between us, you and I don't know if you've probably seen this on a cartoon or something where it's a number 6 to me, but it's a number 9 to you. The number is really both 6 and 9s, right? Because it's the perception that I'm looking at. I'm looking at a 6 and you're looking at a 9. I'm not going to change your mind because from your eyes, you're seeing that number, right?
Yes.
And people get into discussions like I am right and you're wrong. And this is compared to like, take a step back. It's like seeing that the bigger picture and to make sure that, okay, let me put myself in your shoes. Maybe it is a 9. Let me come around. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I see where you're coming from. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And to me, that plays into, I mentioned team building and leadership with a team. That really plays into how I think we should build teams, is to assemble people who can look at that number from all different vantage points, from across the room, from right on top of it, from under it, all of that stuff. And the combination of all of those perspectives is valuable because those folks are leading other people who have yet different perspectives. So the more that you can broaden that experience and broaden that perspective, the more effective you're going to be in leading, in communicating, in building, and really creating a path and trajectory for folks.
Right. Yeah. And then I would say as having the patience to make sure, like, for example, I have this gentleman who is new to this role and he still has a lot to learn, the questions he needs to be asking, the things he needs to be researching, you know what I mean? So I constantly provide that feedback right to him, and he feels like he loves the feedback, but at the same time, I want to make sure that he understands that he's doing a good job. But here's some different perspective that you're missing, right? From the years of experience that I may have and he doesn't have, right? And that brings that value. So I like what you're saying about the more minds, the better, right? But you have to have the right energy when you come to the team. So
exactly. Yep.
Another thing, you've heard the whole growth mindset and the scarcity mindset. I would love to, if you don't mind sharing some experiences on what that means to you too, as it relates to kind leadership.
Sure. So when I think about growth mindset, I think about the power of really why not, and trying something that you may be uncomfortable with, And for me, it was when I made the move from the government IT industry into the commercial space. It was a huge unknown for me. I was going from my really, really tight community where everyone knows everyone, and we all have a goal, and everyone's contributing to that goal, to the big scary unknown of a different industry, new people, new outcomes, all sorts of new things. And it was really, really scary. So for me, it was one of the things that I would attribute to some of the most exponential growth that I've had, because I wound up saying yes to take that risk. It was, kind of early in career, I would say. I still have a lot to go. And it exposed me to new cultures, new patterns of thought, new individuals, new types of problems that I have the chance to affect and to lead through. So to me, when I think about growth mindset, I think about the power of why not? Try it. You may come away saying, gosh, that really stunk, and I don't want to do that again. But you also have the chance to look back and say, I did that, and I learned this, that, and the other thing from it, rather than, I had the chance to do that, but I just said, no, I'm going to stay in my little comfy spot. And that's what I try to not only model, but do a little bit of myself, and then also encourage others to do as well.
Beautiful. I do want to come back in the government and commercial leadership style. So I'll come back to that, put a pin on that one. But you talk about doing something, taking the leap, right? From a abundance mindset or a growth mindset, right? That's a huge thing that not every person has. And everybody is afraid of the unknown. And I have several examples that I can give. But one big one is, when you go to the beach, I don't know if you go into the ocean, right? Some people don't like it, don't even touch it, right? But my kid the other day, not the other day, but last summer, he's like, he doesn't want to go in the ocean anymore. He used to love it. You jump in, and I love the ocean. Like, what are you afraid about? He's like, I don't know what's in there. And he said, you know how big the ocean is? I mean, you hear about sharks and all the different things, but you can't worry about that too much. Let's enjoy the water right here, right now. Let's get our toes in, let's get our knees in, and then slowly start to walk. There's nothing, right? Just enjoy it. Just take a leap. Just jump and do it, right? And and it's a bit, for a kid, obviously, it's a big concept to understand, or to not be afraid of the unknown, right? But as adults, that still carries. It's like, it may not be the water, but now it's the new industry to get into. And, for the most part, you will learn anyways, right? You will learn if it's not your thing, or you will learn that it is your thing, and you're going to make it better. So, as a advice for people out there listening, is as part of a kind leadership, I think is the unknown of also leading, right? Am the right kind leader to lead folks out there with the right approach, right? And the answer is nobody knows but yourself. Just take the leap, and don't be afraid of being genuine at the end of the day, right?
Yep. And along with that, there's a couple of things that I would like to highlight. No one knows it all. So if we go in with that level of humility to begin with, that brings down expectations, and it brings down the stress a good bit. And I think that this translates so clearly to, I'm a planner. I love to write things down because I love to go back to them and say, oh, I did this. I still haven't done this. This is still on the plan, and that kind of thing. I like feeling that sense of accomplishment and completion. So I think that when it comes to embracing the new and embracing the scary, I think it's good to be intentional about that. And that to me comes in a form of an annual plan or something like that, broken down by quarter, because if you don't write it down and you really don't commit to it, what I find is that it slides to the next year or the next page. And then we never really get to it, right. Because life happens and you get caught up and you're busy, and family and work, and the rest of life just happens. Right. So being very specific about, I want to learn this, and I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to block it on my calendar and make it happen. I think that, that's just a good practice to work on. It's really hard. I know that, I know it is, but being intentional about becoming uncomfortable, the more that you do it, it truly is a practice. And it's like, okay, well, now I can blend this experience from over here and a little bit from over here. And you wind up becoming a faster student along the way as well.
I love that. I mean, it's the SMART goals, right? I can't remember all what they stand for, but it's the SMART goals to make sure that you attain them, right? And I don't know if you heard the saying, it's like people overestimate what you can accomplish in a year, and they underestimate what you can accomplish in 10 years.
Yes.
Right? Because it's only a year. I go do all this stuff, and then 10 years so far away. But
so far.
But in reality is, if you don't really attack it today, like a little something, right? A day, and build those habits of where you want to be through kind of leadership or a new field or whatever, right? I know you and I fly around in the sky, so there's always something new to learn, right? Always, right? And then you said, going back to what you said, we don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. From the old style of leadership to what we're seeing nowadays is, I think before it was like you were elevated higher when you came across as, everything. Oh, like this guy knows everything, and you know what I mean? And we want to be like him or her, right? And from that perspective, compared to like, I don't know everything, or you don't know everything, but what we do have is the right intentions to deliver value into whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's our customer or value to our team or value to even our family, right? How are we leading within our family? How
are we contributing?
Right, into our family to create that legacy and that impact, in this world. So that's very powerful for sure. The other thing is, going back to the government and commercial, I'm curious your experience of, you were in the government in the, DOD, IC kind of world. What was your experience in leadership styles there and what you're seeing now in the commercial?
It's I am eternally thankful for the lessons that I learned in the government space, and I met some amazing human beings that set me on my trajectory in the government space. And I'm, again, eternally thankful for all of those folks. And what I saw as a difference between the two is in the government space, it's more, I would say, top down, where there's a directive. And then we translate that directive to, okay, these are different initiatives. And the initiatives are very specifically fanned out to different responsible organizations. And that is the purpose in life of that organization, to fulfill those objectives. In the commercial space, it's much more free form. We definitely have the overall objectives. And I'll tell you a really funny story. So I'm fresh out of business school and I become a consultant. And, I'm programmed from my business school days. Profit is king. Profit is king. Profit is king. And one day I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, where is the profit? And when I made that connection that it was not profit, it was mission. Mission was the objective. I was like, oh, okay, this makes so much sense. Why didn't someone tell me this a long time ago? So it's those parallels that you wind up figuring out between the two worlds. But in the commercial space, it's like creativity, I would say, is more embraced. And there are certainly, end goals that we have to work toward. You have targets, you have revenue, you do have profit, things that are more linear in nature, I would say. It's just different. And I think that the combination of those experiences really has created, my leadership style, and drawing from the good on both of those experiences. I love the creative aspect of it. I find myself being more of a leader by intent. And the way that I think about that is, if I have an objective, I'm explaining where we need to go as a team. What is our finish line? What does it look like? Where is it? How long is it going to take us? Things like that, kind of the broad strokes. Right. Give everyone the edges. These are the do not go, do not pass, boundaries. But then give everyone the creativity in the middle to figure out how we're going to get from here to there. Right. And that will always yield a better result than if I were to plan it out, because I'm one person. The power of having a team all collaborating to solve something is always better than certainly what I could come up with. So.
Well, thank you for that kind of differences. I mean, it sounds like you can gain a lot of great experience on the government side. And then Yeah, you're right. It's the mission versus the profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on both ends. And the mission is sometimes life-threatening. Life-sensitive. Where, the war fighters were saving people's lives or helping save the country.
Yep.
So that's very important. So decisions are tough from the top. What are we doing to make sure that they have the right information, the right time to execute on what they need to execute, compared to like, what do they need to make money?
Mm-hmm.
On the commercial, it's a little bit different. You still got to survive and grow your business. I get it, right? But when we're talking about humans, and lives, it's a little bit more sensitive. And
certainly. And one more parallel that I realized between the two is, it's saving lives. It's also protecting those who choose to put themselves in harm's way. On the other side, on the commercial side, there are many times where you're working in healthcare and
true.
you're working with physicians and doctors and patients, maybe creating new drugs or doing all sorts of truly life-saving, affecting hundreds, if not thousands or millions of people's lives.
Right.
So from that aspect, when I was able to draw those parallels, I'm like, ooh, this is the fun stuff.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, for sure. So good on as it relates to the correlation, and from the leadership styles a little bit, you can see the differences, right? Just from a sensitivity. But so I appreciate you kind of sharing that. As it relates to adversity and, the way you've been leading or have been led in the different, how do you have some examples on that by any chance?
Oh gosh, so many. Yes. So I'll give you a really quick story. When I think I was around 25, I was asked to lead my company's second prime contract. There is no one on the earth that looked at me at that point and said, Jen is the right person for this. But for some reason, my manager at the time was like, Jen, you're going to lead this. I'm like, okay, yes, I'm going to do this. I learned so much in that experience. I learned a new technology set. I learned how to do, kind of the impossible. I had 16 people. We had to do an impossible task in 90 days or less. And there was certainly adversity. There were a lot of challenges. There were a lot of reasons why this should not have worked. But through that, we persevered. We figured it out. We delivered on time within the scope and within what we needed to do. And it taught me a lot. It taught me that in those times of pressure, that's actually when you build amazing teams. And as a leader, what I took away from that is when you are faced with adversity, the natural inclination for a lot of us is to take things off of our plate or take things off of our team's plate because we're like, oh, Gino, I know I can see you're under a lot of pressure. But what winds up happening is that kind of removes some of the responsibility and removes some of the ownership during those times of challenge. And what you really need is that balance. And it's very delicate. You need that balance of pressure and time sensitivity and encouragement so that everyone feels ownership. And, if you think back on the teams that in a moment's notice, if you could reassemble a team that you used to work with, it was probably something that was under a lot of pressure. It was considered impossible. Somehow you made it happen, and we all have those teams that you could think back to. And if you could snap your finger, you'd put those back together. But it's because of that pressure and that perfect moment that was assembled. And that's one example of adversity. Another one that is ever present, but it's kind of secondary for me at this point, is being a woman in technology. There have been many times where I'm one person in 35 and 35 guys around the table doing amazing work. And I look at it as I am part of the team, but that's taken some practice. That wasn't something that was necessarily comfortable at first, because you're different. You're different than everyone else in the room. But it's definitely been something that I've embraced. And it's a commitment of mine also to bring others with me.
Great.
So.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, being in a room where, speaking for myself, minority, right?
Yep.
And I came here to this country when I was 10 years old, not a word of English, right? And coming in and trying to learn it. But to be honest, I never saw... I had to grow up fast because I had to learn the language. I had to help my parents with documents and calling people and blah, 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 right? All those different things, right? But my adversity wasn't so much on the minority, what I looked like, it was more of my age, because I always been like, I grew up so fast that I've always been like farther ahead in the way I think and the things that I'm doing. So my age was always my like kryptonite in a way. They're like, oh man, I'm too young to be doing that, or I'm too young. And like, do they really think, am I good enough? Right? Do I have, so, from a female perspective, or woman in technology, that's something that is still, and it's growing. I mean, people are getting better, but it's something that, it's a huge adversity as it relates to feeling like you can deliver, or feeling like you belong in that group, or whatever it is, I'm trying to.
Absolutely. And it's imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's classic imposter syndrome. And going back to, what we talked about a bit ago, which was, leave the expectation that one person knows everything at the door.
Right.
And be very deliberate and specific about what you are an expert in and why you were brought to the table, and really own that. And this is, again, not a light switch. This is not something that we bring, we just make happen. This is something that is practiced. But if we're comfortable with, I am an expert in, pick your area of practice, and I'm here because I know something that everyone else wants to know. That helps with kind of pushing down some of that imposter syndrome. It definitely creeps up every once in a while. It probably always will. But being comfortable with, this is my area of expertise, and I was brought here for a specific purpose because people want to know what I know. Exactly. There's a confidence that comes with that.
Yeah, and you have to have that confidence, and it's tough, right? It's hard, right? Yep. It's like you're not born with it, right? And you're like, you really have to keep building yourself up in that. Like, I'm good, but you have to find that passion. You can't just be confident for everything, right? It's like, what are you passionate about? And even putting this together, this kind leadership, was like, who wants to hear about kind leadership? The imposter was like, do I put this together or not? Right? So far so good. I'm getting some good feedback on it, but it's really, how do you manage that, and how do you push through that adversity, your own adversity you're creating in your head, with you're telling yourself you're not good enough, right? So it's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen, and it's something that I heard this. I'm probably going to butcher the percentage of like 80% of our thoughts are negative throughout the day.
Wow,
right?
I believe it.
It's like you're constantly. It's that it thinks it's trying to help you. At the end of the day, yourself, you're trying to avoid the risk, avoid the different things. No, just stay in your safe spot, your safe space. Don't do anything crazy. You know what I mean? But it's like, you have to get through that, experience this world at the end of the day, and do it in a way that, or do the things that are going to make you happy and that you're passionate about. And most importantly, how are you bringing value and impacting, anything around you, basically. So it's great. So I got a few more before we kind of wrap up here. How do you see it? I mean, we talked about government, commercial, we talked about different industries, but what's the future of leadership? Where do you see, especially from a kind leadership perspective, what is this? Do you think this is the new way of things?
So technology is really affecting leadership and what it means to be a leader and communicate specifically as a leader. There's so much technology that does a lot of the thinking for us in a, quote, helpful way.
Yep.
And, I think that the power of being authentic and being transparent is ever present. That is not something that we will ever create a solution for that replaces that, because it's something that you feel. That's the human connection. Trust is another thing that is built because of a human connection. And technology will seek to aid these things, but nothing really replaces a good, true human connection. So I think that will not only remain, but continue to be very, very critical to leadership as we move forward. And the folks that really embrace that, those are the folks that are going to be successful.
Beautiful. I love the authenticity that you're talking about, right? Be really genuine and caring, right? At the end of the day, of whatever it is that you're doing, you're leading people, leading projects, even at home, like contributing, be genuine and authentic. I love that. I really like that. The other thing is, so we one of the questions, if you could have coffee with anyone alive or from the past, who would it be and why?
I love this question. You gave me some things to think about before today, but this one I really thought about. And I was like, if I could do this with anyone, who would it be? And it was my first thought. And it's also who I would have coffee with. And going back to the flying connection,
Okay.
I would have to say it's Amelia Earhart because, I've read a lot about her and her life and the wild and gritty things that she's done. There's also things that I would love to ask her about. When she was flying, there was no ceiling because there was no expectation because this is all new stuff.
Right.
And the concept of that, when you really break that down, is really freeing because only 6% of pilots are women. And to exchange kind of where we are in aviation today versus where she was with aviation and really pushing the boundaries and truly creating things that never existed before. I just think that would be an amazing person to have coffee with.
That's awesome. Yeah. Talk about risk taker, right?
Yes.
Going in there and flying and exploring the world, so that's a good one too, for sure. Well, thank you, Jen, for your time, and congratulations on all your success and, everything that you've done and all the things that you've shared with us here in this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So where can the listeners connect with you?
Oh, certainly. I am available on LinkedIn. So if you just search for me, Jen Diffenderfer, I am there, and I would be happy to connect there.
Awesome. Great. Actually, I do have one more last question. Any final thoughts for the listeners here?
I would say it's a practice.
Okay.
All of leadership is a practice. There are going to be days that are just phenomenal and you walk away feeling proud and like you had a great impact. And there are going to be days that you learn a lot and you're not going to feel so great. And you're like, man, I really messed that up. The thing to keep doing is keep going. Right? It is truly a practice. Those hard days are the days that you're going to learn the most from, and build your practice based on those around you. The podcast is one example of a piece of information to build into your practice. Ask a lot of questions along the way. If you're thinking it, someone else has thought it as well. So be very collaborative, maintain transparency, and build trust, and all will be well.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much, Jen, again. Thank you for having you here. It's been an amazing show. Everybody out there, appreciate the feedback. This is the fourth episode, I think fourth or fifth episode now that we have, and look forward to creating some more and maybe bringing you back again in the future. You never know. All right, everybody, thank you. So with that, be kind, bring value, rise together. Take care, everybody.